My name is Miles Warren. I was 35, senior account strategist at a consulting firm in Chicago, and for the last 2 years, my professional life had been measured against one person, Nora Keene. Nora was brilliant in the most irritating way possible. Not flashy, not loud, not the kind of person who dominated a room by performing confidence. She was worse than that. She listened, waited, and then said the one sentence that made everyone else's 10-slide argument look decorative. We competed for the same clients, the same recognition, and eventually the same director role. She corrected my forecasts in meetings. I challenged her pricing assumptions. She once wrote, "optimistic bordering on magical," in the margin of my proposal. I once told a partner her timeline required either a second team or a small miracle. People at the office loved watching us go at each other because we never got sloppy. No yelling, no cheap shots, just two adults with too much pride, too much competence, and the unsettling habit of making each other better by refusing to let the other get comfortable. I told myself I disliked her. That was useful. It kept everything simple. Then came the Braddock dinner. Braddock was our biggest prospective client of the year, and after 6 brutal weeks of preparation, we won the account. The partners booked the private room of a steakhouse downtown, which meant expensive wine, forced celebration, and senior leadership pretending they had not spent the entire pitch season aging in real time. Nora sat across the table from me in a dark green dress and a black blazer, hair pinned up, one silver earring catching the light when she turned her head. She looked composed, as usual. Too composed, maybe. I noticed because I always noticed. That was part of the problem. At first, everything was normal. People toasted, laughed too loudly, told stories about the pitch like it had been a war instead of a series of conference calls with better catering. Nora corrected one partner's memory of a key moment, politely enough to be deniable, and I had to look into my glass to hide a smile. Then her phone lit up. She checked it under the table. I saw her face change. Not much. Most people would have missed it. But I'd spent 2 years reading Nora across boardroom tables. I knew the difference between her focus, her irritation, and the precise blankness she used when something hurt and she refused to let it show. She stood 5 minutes later. "I'll be right back," she said. Nobody paid attention, except me. She came back 10 minutes after that and ordered another drink. Then another. That was unlike her. Nora drank socially but carefully. 1 glass of wine at events. Maybe 2 if she trusted the room, which she rarely did. By the time dessert arrived, her eyes had gone too bright and her smile had turned into something sharp enough to cut herself with. Our coworker Dean leaned toward me and whispered, "Keene's finally human tonight." I looked at him. "Don't be an idiot." He laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. The dinner broke apart around 11. Some people ordered rides. Some moved toward the bar. Nora stood too fast, swayed once, and caught the back of her chair. Dean saw it. So did 2 junior associates, who looked amused in the cruel, cowardly way people get when someone usually untouchable becomes vulnerable. One of them lifted his phone. That was enough. I crossed the room, stepped between Nora and the camera, and said, "She's done for the night." Nora looked at me, eyes unfocused, but still somehow annoyed. "I can speak for myself." "I know." "Then don't." "I'm not speaking for you. I'm leaving with you." That got through. Barely. Her mouth opened, probably to argue, but then the fight went out of her face so fast it scared me. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. The restaurant lights turned the wet pavement gold. Nora stood under the awning with her arms wrapped around herself while I ordered a ride. "I'm not drunk," she said. "You are, Sal. You're enjoying this." "No." That made her look at me, really look. For once, there was no rivalry in it, just suspicion, exhaustion, and something close to shame. The ride arrived. I helped her into the back seat, careful not to touch more than necessary. She gave the driver her address with perfect diction, then immediately rested her forehead against the window like the effort had cost her. For the first few minutes, we said nothing. Chicago moved by in streaks of rain and brake lights. Then she whispered, "Don't tell them." I looked over. "Tell them what?" She closed her eyes. "That I lost." That sentence landed strangely. You didn't lose anything tonight, I said. We won, Braddock. She laughed once. It was the saddest sound I'd ever heard from her. Not Braddock. I waited. She didn't explain. At her building, I walked her to the lobby, signed in with the doorman because she fumbled her keys twice, and made sure she got to her apartment door. She unlocked it herself, which mattered. I stayed in the hallway. Water, I said. Phone charger, lock the door behind me. She leaned one shoulder against the frame and looked at me like she wanted to hate me for being decent. Why are you being quiet? She asked. Because you'll remember enough tomorrow. Her face shifted. Then, very softly, she said, I hope I don't. I should have asked. I didn't. She was drunk, hurt, not ready. And whatever had happened on that phone call was not something I had the right to pull out of her just because she could not defend the door properly tonight. So I said, Good night, Nora. She stared at me for 1 second longer. Then she whispered, Good night, Miles. That was the first time she had ever said my first name without making it sound like a correction. I waited until I heard the lock turn. Then I went home. The next morning, I got to the office early with coffee, a headache I had not earned, and the unsettling memory of Nora's voice saying, I lost. At 9:12, someone knocked on my office door. I looked up. Nora stood there in yesterday's blazer, hair pulled back too tightly, face pale, eyes red like she had not slept at all. For the first time since I had known her, she did not look like my rival. She looked like a woman who had run out of places to be unbreakable. Miles, she said, voice trembling, did I say anything to you last night? I stood. She held my gaze for half a second. Then her composure broke, and Nora Keene started crying in my doorway. I closed my office door before anyone could see her. Not fast enough to look dramatic. Fast enough to be decent. Nora stood just inside, one hand pressed against her mouth, trying to force herself back into shape. It was painful to watch because I knew that look. Not from her. From myself. From every person who has ever realized the thing they spent years controlling had finally slipped out where someone else could see. I kept my voice low. Sit down. I'm fine. Nora. Her face crumpled again. So she sat. Not in the chair across from my desk. That would have made it feel like a meeting. She sat on the small leather couch by the window, shoulders tight, knees together, hands clasped so hard her knuckles went pale. I grabbed a glass of water from the side table and handed it to her. She took it with both hands. For a while, she didn't drink. She just stared at it. I don't remember everything, she said. You don't need to. Her eyes shot up. That is not comforting. It's true. Miles, please. That word changed the room. Please. Nora Keene did not use please at work unless she was about to make someone regret refusing her. This one sounded different. Scared. I sat in the chair nearest the couch, leaving enough space between us that she would not feel cornered. You didn't embarrass yourself, I said. You were upset. You drank more than usual. I took you home. You asked me not to tell anyone. She closed her eyes. Oh, God. Nora, what else? I thought about it, about the ride, the rain, the way she had pressed her forehead to the car window, the sentence that had followed me into the morning. I said, You said you lost. She went completely still. There it was, the thing she had feared, not the drunken part, the honest part. Her eyes opened slowly. I said that? Yes. Did I say what I meant? No. She let out a breath that almost sounded like relief. Then she covered her face with both hands. I leaned back and waited. There are people who rush grief because silence makes them uncomfortable. I had watched Nora destroy that kind of person in meetings. I was not going to become one in my own office. After a minute, she lowered her hands. My father called during dinner, she said. I stayed quiet. He has Parkinson's, early stages. Not public. Not even everyone in my family knows yet. Her voice was controlled now, which somehow made it worse. My mother called me last night because he fell at home. He's okay. Bruised. angry, humiliated. "I'm sorry." She nodded once, like accepting sympathy was another professional task. "He used to be a surgeon," she said. "Hands steady enough to make people whisper about them. He was impossible, brilliant, arrogant, demanding." A small broken smile appeared and vanished. "He raised me like the world was one long oral exam." That sounded exactly like the man who would have produced Nora. Then she said, "Last night he couldn't button his shirt." The words dropped between us. No spreadsheet, no pitch. No room full of partners could do anything with that. I understood then. I lost had not meant Braddock. It had meant time, control, the father she had spent her life trying to impress. "I got the call," she continued, "and then I went back into that private room with everyone celebrating, and I could not stand how normal they all sounded. Dean was laughing about champagne. Harlan was making jokes about bonuses, and I kept thinking, my father is sitting on the floor of his bedroom because he can't trust his own body, and I'm here smiling because we won an account." Her voice cracked on the last word. She hated that it did. I could tell. So I didn't react to the crack. I reacted to the truth. "That would break most people for a minute." Her jaw tightened. "I don't get minutes." "Yes, you do." "No." She looked at me sharply. "You don't understand. My whole life, the second I showed weakness, someone either used it, corrected it, or called it unbecoming." I almost said something about her father. I didn't. She wasn't ready for that. Instead, I said, "I didn't." Her eyes locked on mine. "I know," she whispered. That was the second honest thing, maybe the more dangerous one. She looked down again. "When Dean laughed, I thought he saw it, not all of it, just enough. And then I saw that junior associate raise his phone, and I thought," she swallowed, "I thought, this is what I'll become. A clip, a rumor, proof that Nora Keene finally cracked." I felt anger move through me, but I kept it quiet. "You didn't become that. Because you stepped in." "Yes." "Why?" The question was direct. But unlike last night, she was sober now. So I answered it properly. "Because I know what it looks like when someone who never drops anything suddenly can't hold one more thing." Nora stared at me. Then she asked, "From experience?" I smiled without humor. "Unfortunately." She waited. And because she had just given me something real, I gave her something back. "My mother had a stroke when I was 28, I said. "I was on a client call when my brother texted me. I finished the call." Nora's face softened, just a little. "I still hate that I did that," I said, "even though there was nothing I could have done faster." Even though she recovered, I hate that for 7 more minutes I chose being composed over being a son. She looked at me like she had never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Not really. Then she said, "You never told anyone that." "No." "Why tell me?" I looked at her tired eyes, yesterday's blazer, the water glass trembling slightly in her hands. "Because you asked why." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The office outside moved on without us. Phones rang. Shoes passed in the hallway. Somewhere, someone laughed too loudly at something that almost certainly was not funny. Nora finally took a sip of water, then she said, "I came here because I thought if you knew, you'd have something over me." "That's not what this is." "I know that now." "You do?" She looked at me. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's why I'm still sitting here." The words hit with more force than they should have, because Nora did not stay where she felt unsafe. Not ever. Before I could answer, my office phone rang. I ignored it. Then my email pinged. Then Nora's phone buzzed on the couch beside her. She checked it and went pale. "What?" She turned the screen toward me. A message from Dean. "Heard you had a rough night. Hope Warren got you home safely. Would hate for the Braddock team to look unstable before director decisions." I read it twice. Then I looked up at her. Nora's face had gone still again, but this time I saw what was underneath. Not fear, fury. Dean had not just noticed, He was testing whether her worst fear had a handle. And for the first time in 2 years of rivalry, I realized I did not want to beat Nora Keene for the director role. I wanted to stand beside her while she destroyed the man who thought her pain made her weak. I read Dean's message one more time. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to make sure I understood exactly how stupid he had chosen to be in writing. Nora took the phone back slowly. "He's bluffing," she said. Maybe, but her voice had gone too flat, which meant she was trying to talk herself into calm before it arrived naturally. "He might be," I said. "Or he might have something from last night." Her eyes lifted to mine. "The associate with the phone." "Maybe." For a second, the office felt smaller than it was. Glass wall, closed door, Chicago skyline behind her. Two people who had spent years competing over strategy suddenly facing something uglier than competition. Nora stood. Too fast. "I need to get ahead of this." "Agreed." She reached for the door. I stepped in front of it, not blocking her aggressively, just enough to stop momentum from making the decision for her. She looked at me. "Move." "No." "Miles. You're about to walk into the hallway with red eyes, yesterday's blazer, and Dean's message on your phone. He wants you reactive." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not reactive. Right now, you're human." That landed harder than I intended. Her face changed. I softened my voice. "Give yourself 5 minutes before you turn this into a war room." She looked like she wanted to argue. Then she sat back down. That was how I knew she trusted me more than either of us knew what to do with. I opened my laptop. "Forward me the text." "No, Nora. If I forward it, you're involved." "I already am." "No," her voice sharpened. "You took me home. You didn't do anything wrong. I am not letting Dean turn you into collateral damage because he thinks embarrassing me helps him professionally." I looked at her. There she was, crying 10 minutes ago and still trying to protect me from a mess I had already stepped into voluntarily. "That's noble," I said. "Also inefficient. Don't manage me." "I'm not. I'm joining the meeting." She stared at me. Then, despite everything, she almost smiled. "You are impossible." I've been described as persistent. By whom? People who lost arguments. That pulled one short breath of laughter out of her. Good, we needed one. Then she forwarded the text. I saved it, took screenshots, and emailed them to my personal archive because consulting teaches you one thing very early. If someone is foolish enough to threaten you in writing, preserve the gift. Next, I texted Lena Ortiz from HR. Not dramatic, not accusatory. Can you meet privately with Nora Keene and me in 15 minutes? Potential workplace conduct issue from last night's Braddock dinner. Written message involved. Lena replied almost immediately. Conference room 11B. No hallway discussion. Good. Nora read the reply over my shoulder and exhaled. Now it's official. Now it's contained. That's what people say before things leak. Then we contain faster. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed again. Dean, relax. I'm just saying perception matters, especially for leadership. Then another. Would be easier for everyone if you step back from director consideration until things settle. Nora went very still. I felt my own anger go cold. Not loud anger, the useful kind. He just said it, I said. He implied it. No, he put a motive on paper. She stared at the screen. Then her expression shifted. Something in her locked back into place, but not the old mask. This was cleaner, sharper. Nora stood again, and this time I didn't stop her. Let's go to HR, she said. Conference room 11B had no windows, and the charm of an interrogation room with better chairs. Lena Ortiz sat at the table with a legal pad, reading glasses low on her nose, expression already tired in the way HR people look when they can smell preventable stupidity. Nora laid out the facts. Not emotionally, not defensively, just facts. Dinner, personal call, alcohol, me taking her home. Junior associate filming or attempting to film. Dean's messages. The implied threat tied to the director role. Lena listened without interrupting. Then she looked at me. Did Ms. Keene ask you to take her home? No, I said. I offered after seeing she was not okay and after someone appeared to be recording her. Did you enter her apartment? No. I walked her to her door, waited until she locked it, and left. Nora's eyes flicked to me. I hadn't told her that last part. Lena wrote something down. Did anyone else witness the attempted recording? 2 associates, I said. Possibly Dean. He was nearby. Lena nodded. Do not discuss this outside this room. Do not confront Dean. Do not contact the associates. I'll handle interviews. Nora's mouth tightened. And the director process? I'll notify the managing partners that a conduct review is open and that any discussion of your candidacy related to last night is frozen until we determine whether there was coercion or retaliation. Lena looked at both of us. This is exactly why we have policy. Nora let out a breath. Not relief. Something close. Miniature justice. It would have to do for now. When we left HR, she stopped in the empty corridor near the elevators. Her composure held until the doors closed behind Lena. Then she leaned back against the wall and pressed her fingers to her eyes. I hate this, she whispered. I know. No, you don't. I hate that I needed help. I hate that Dean saw enough to try. I hate that my father is sick and somehow I'm standing here proving to HR that I'm still fit to lead. I stepped closer, but not too close. You are fit to lead. She dropped her hand and looked at me. You don't have to say that. I know. You're my competition. Not for this. That quieted her. Why? She asked. It was the same question from my office, but deeper now. Why step in? Why preserve the text? Why go to HR? Why stand beside her when standing aside might have helped me win? I could have given her a professional answer. Policy, fairness, workplace ethics. All true. None complete. So I said, because beating you only meant something when you were standing at full strength. Her eyes widened slightly. And because, I added quieter, I don't want a promotion badly enough to watch someone use your pain as leverage. For a moment, the entire office disappeared. No dean, no HR, no director role, just Nora looking at me like I had said something she was afraid to believe. Then the elevator dinged. We both stepped back, too quickly. A junior associate walked out, saw us, and looked immediately terrified of interrupting whatever he had interrupted. Nora's professional face returned, but as we started down the hall, her hand brushed mine once. Not an accident. Not exactly. A thank you she couldn't say there. At 4:30, Lena called us back. Dean had denied everything badly. One associate confirmed he had encouraged them to record Nora at dinner. The other admitted there was a short clip, but deleted it after I stepped in. Lena had retrieved enough from messages to verify the attempt. Dean was being removed from the Braddock account pending review. More importantly, he was out of the director consideration pool. Nora sat very still while Lena explained it. When we stepped out, she didn't smile. She just looked exhausted. Then she said, I should go see my father. You should. She nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Miles. Yeah? Her voice was quiet now, unsteady in a way she would have hated yesterday. Would you come with me? I stared at her. To the hospital? To my parents' house. She swallowed once. He's home. My mother says he's embarrassed and angry and refusing help, and I don't think I can walk into that room alone today without becoming 12 years old. There were 100 reasons to say no. Work, boundaries, rivalry. The fact that the day had already crossed more lines than either of us knew how to name, but Nora Keene was standing in front of me asking not to be alone. So I picked up my coat and said, let's go. Nora's parents lived in Evanston, in a brick house with white trim, old maple trees, and the kind of front porch that looked like it had been built for calm people. Nora did not look calm when we pulled up. She sat in the passenger seat with her coat folded over her lap, staring at the house like it was a courtroom where the verdict had been decided years ago. You don't have to come in, she said. I know. I mean it. This is not part of whatever today was. What was today? She looked at me. That was the wrong question, because neither of us had a clean answer. Today had been too many things: a workplace threat, a personal confession, H.R. Dean's downfall, her father's illness, me becoming something that no longer fit neatly under rival, coworker, or accidental ride home. So she looked back at the house and said, "Complicated. Then I'll wait for your cue." Her mouth tightened slightly. "You sound like you've done this before. Walked into a parent's house during a medical crisis?" "No," her voice lowered. "Known when not to take over." That landed quietly. "I'm learning," I said. Her mother opened the door before we reached the steps. She was elegant in a tired way, with Nora's eyes and a cardigan buttoned unevenly, like the day had started before she was ready for it. "Nora," she said, and then she saw me. Nora stopped beside me. "Mom, this is Miles Warren. We work together." The pause after that was brief. Then her mother looked at Nora's face and understood enough not to ask the obvious questions. "Come in," she said. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, coffee, and something baking too long in the oven. There were family photos along the hallway: Nora at 16 with a debate trophy, Nora at 22 in a graduation gown, Nora standing beside a tall man in surgical scrubs who looked at the camera with the same sharp intensity she carried into conference rooms. Her father. Dr. Edmund Keene was in the living room, seated in a leather chair by the window with a blanket over his knees and a newspaper open on his lap. He looked older than the man in the photos, but not diminished in the way I expected. The pride was still there. That was part of the problem. He looked up when we entered. His gaze went first to Nora, then to me. "Who is he asked. Nora's mother sighed. "Edmund?" "What? I'm not dead, I can ask." Nora's face did something strange. Annoyance and relief, both at once. "This is Miles," she said. "The rival?" I looked at Nora. She closed her eyes briefly. "Dad?" He studied me. "You're taller than I expected." "I apologize for the inaccurate branding." His mouth twitched. Nora looked like she did not know whether to be horrified or grateful. For the first 20 minutes, everything was practical. Medication, follow-up appointment, whether the physical therapist had called, whether her father had eaten. He answered every question like a man being cross-examined by someone he had trained too well. "I do not need a nurse," he said. Nora stood near the mantel. "No one said nurse." "You implied nurse." "I implied help. I buttoned my own shirt for 71 years before today." "And today you couldn't," she said. The room went silent. Her mother looked down. Her father's face hardened. Nora immediately looked like she regretted it, but the sentence was already there. I stayed still. This was not my room. Her father folded the newspaper carefully with hands that did not quite obey him. That small struggle hurt to watch more than any argument could have. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. "You think I don't know that?" Nora's face changed. All the professional steel went out of it. "Dad," she whispered. "No." He looked at his hands. "I know exactly what happened. I know your mother helped me change my shirt. I know I dropped a glass yesterday and pretended I knocked it with my elbow. I know my hand shakes worse when I'm angry, which is inconvenient because I am angry most of the time now." Nora looked like she might break. He looked at her then, and for the first time I saw the father underneath the pride. "I called you last night because I was scared," he said. "Then I hated myself for scaring you," Nora covered her mouth. Her mother sat beside him and took his hand. He let her. That seemed to matter to all of them. I turned slightly toward the hallway. "I can give you some privacy." "No," Edmund said. I stopped. He looked at me with a surgeon's precision still alive behind tired eyes. "She brought you because she needed you here. Don't make her ask twice." Nora froze. So did I. Her mother's eyes moved between us with the kind of quiet awareness mothers always seem to have before anyone gives them permission. Nora's voice was barely there. "Dad?" He looked at her. "You think I don't know my own daughter? You only bring witnesses when the truth is too heavy to carry alone." That was the sentence that broke her. Not loudly, She sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, and cried with one hand covering her face like she was still trying to negotiate terms with grief. Her father reached for her. His hand shook. Nora saw it, and instead of pretending not to, she took his hand in both of hers and held it steady. No one in the room said anything for a long time. Later, Nora's mother made coffee none of us really wanted. Edmund asked me 3 questions about my job, all of them too sharp for a man supposedly recovering. Then he asked if Nora was better than me at work. I looked at her. She looked exhausted, red-eyed, and very dangerous. Yes, I said. Nora stared at me. Her father nodded, satisfied. Good. She gets that from me. She gets the impossible standards from you, I said. The better part is hers. The room went still again. Nora looked away first, but not before I saw what it did to her. When we left, dusk had settled over the porch. Nora walked down the steps beside me in silence. At the car, she stopped, one hand on the door handle. Miles. Yeah? I don't know what to do with today. Then don't decide tonight. She gave a small, broken laugh. You keep saying reasonable things. It's becoming irritating. I'll try to damage my credibility soon. She turned toward me fully. The porch light caught the tiredness in her face, but also something softer underneath it. You saw too much, she said. I know. And you didn't use any of it. No. Why? The question again. Only now we both knew it had stopped being professional hours ago. I took one breath. Because I don't want to win against you anymore, Nora. Her eyes held mine. What do you want? I could hear the risk in it. Hers, mine. The whole day seemed to narrow down to that porch, that question, and the woman in front of me who had spent years teaching the world she needed nothing. So I told her the truth. I want to be the person you don't have to perform for. Nora looked at me like the sentence had gone somewhere deeper than either of us expected. Then she stepped closer. Not into my arms, not dramatically, just close enough that the space between us stopped pretending to be neutral. And in a voice I barely recognized, she said, Then don't leave yet. I didn't leave. Not right away. Nora and I stood beside my car while the porch light glowed behind her and her parents' house settled into evening quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after too much honesty and not enough sleep. She looked exhausted. Not weak, just done performing strength for every room that had ever demanded it. So I said, okay. That was all. No speech, no move closer, no attempt to turn a brutal day into something beautiful too quickly. Just okay. I stayed beside her until her breathing slowed, until the porch no longer looked like a courtroom, until she finally looked at me and said, I should go back inside. You should? My mother will ask questions. Probably. My father will pretend not to. Definitely. That got a faint smile from her. Then she did something I did not expect. She reached for my hand. Not dramatically, not like a confession, just one brief, steady squeeze, as if she needed proof that the day had not imagined me. Thank you, she said. For what? For being quiet when quiet mattered. Then she went inside. The next few weeks were not simple. Dean's review became official. He was removed from the Braddock account, then placed on leave, then quietly left the firm before the end of the quarter. The junior associates who had tried to record Nora got written warnings and mandatory conduct training. Lena Ortiz handled everything with the calm brutality of someone who had seen too many mediocre men confuse opportunity with leverage. The director role was paused, then reopened. Nora and I both remained candidates. That should have made everything easier to define. It didn't. We were still rivals on paper, still in meetings, still pushing each other on strategy, numbers, timelines, margins. But something fundamental had shifted. The sharpness remained, but the cruelty had left the room. We stopped trying to win by making the other smaller. One late night, 3 weeks after the Braddock dinner, I found Nora in the office kitchen staring at the coffee machine like it had personally failed her. Careful, I said. That machine only respects fear. She glanced over. It should. I've given it plenty. I leaned against the counter. Your father? Bad day. She folded her arms. Not medically catastrophic, just humanly awful. I nodded. She looked at me. You're not going to ask for details? Do you want me to? Her face softened in that small, almost invisible way I had started to recognize. No, she said. I want to stand here for 30 seconds and not explain myself. So we did. 30 seconds, then 60. Then she said, I hate that you're good at this. I have very limited talents. Unfortunately, this one matters. That was how we began. Not with a dramatic declaration, with pauses, with room, with the strange, careful trust of two people who knew exactly how dangerous the office could become if we were careless. When the director interviews restarted, Nora came to my office one evening and closed the door behind her. We need rules, she said, about the role, about us. The word sat there, us, not partnership, not friendship, not rivalry, us. So we made rules. No private decisions that could affect the promotion, no using personal knowledge in professional arguments, no late-night emotional conversations in the office after closed-door meetings. No pretending the tension wasn't there, but no letting it make our work dishonest either. Then Nora said, and if one of us gets the role, we don't punish the other for losing. She looked at me for a long time. Agreed. She got the role. Of course she did. She was better in the final panel. Cleaner, sharper, more prepared. I knew it before the announcement. And when the partners called both of us in, when they told her first and then told me they wanted me to lead the Braddock expansion under the new structure, I felt something I did not expect. Not resentment, pride. Nora looked at me afterward in the empty conference room, waiting for the old rivalry to reappear. It didn't. You earned it, I said. Her eyes brightened, but she did not cry, not there. Instead, she whispered, don't be too graceful. It's unsettling. I'll be irritating tomorrow. Promise? Absolutely. That night, we went for a walk along the river. No office, no witnesses, no role between us. Just cold air, city lights, and the first real freedom either of us had felt in months. Halfway across the pedestrian bridge, Nora stopped. I'm scared, she said. I know. I don't know how to be with someone who has seen me that clearly. That makes two of us. She looked at me then. No performance, no rivalry, no polished answer waiting behind her teeth. Just Nora, the woman who had cried in my doorway, the woman who had held her father's innowing hand, the woman who had still walked into HR with evidence and steel in her spine. I don't want you to be my safe place only when everything is falling apart, she said. That was the sentence. The one that made all the others unnecessary. I took her hand. Then, let's find out who we are when things are good too. We did. Slowly. Privately at first, then honestly. HR was informed once the reporting structure was clean. The firm did not collapse. The world did not end. Nora remained terrifying in meetings, and I remained annoying enough to make her better. Her father's condition progressed, but not in a straight line. There were difficult months, better weeks, awful mornings, quiet victories. The first time he let me help him button a cuff, he looked at me and said, "Tell anyone and I'll deny it." I said, "Doctor-patient confidentiality." He said, "You're not a boo me. Doctor?" "No, but I know when to keep my mouth shut." He liked me after that. 2 years later, Nora and I left the firm and started our own consulting practice. Not because love made us reckless, because we were tired of helping powerful people make cowardly decisions look strategic. Our first office had 3 desks, terrible carpet, and a coffee machine worse than the one we left behind. Nora called it character. I called it a lawsuit waiting to happen. We fought constantly, professionally, productively. Then we went home together and left the arguments on the conference table where they belonged. 3 years after the night I took her home in silence, I proposed in that same office kitchen where we had first learned how to stand quietly beside each other. No audience, no dramatic setup. Just Nora, exhausted after a client call, holding a mug of terrible coffee and telling me my revised proposal was less wrong. I said, "Marry me." She stared at me, then she said, "That transition was aggressive. I've been told." Her eyes filled. Then she laughed, and that was when I knew she was going to say yes. She did. Years later, when people asked how we got together, Nora usually said, "He took me home when I was drunk and didn't use it against me." I'd say, "She knocked on my door the next morning and ruined my entire competitive strategy." Both were true. But the deeper truth was this: I fell in love with my work rival not because she was unbreakable. I fell in love because one morning she stopped pretending to be and trusted me enough to stay in the room when she couldn't hold the mask anymore. What would you have done if your drunk work rival knocked on your door the next morning in tears, terrified she had said too much? And have you ever realized that the person you were competing with was the one person who actually understood you? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like.